Thanks for joining me here. If you have seen some of my other videos pertaining to growing out my own natural hair color, then you obviously know that I'm no longer dyeing my hair, and actually at this point it's been 6 months and a couple of days since I last dyed it. But I have mentioned in a couple of other videos, I made a reference anyway to the developer that I had been using because it develops the dye more quickly and more gently than the average developer. It's still, I'm sure it's still got chemicals in it that are not necessarily ideal, but if you are currently still dyeing your hair and want to continue dyeing your hair, I want to at least share this with you so that you can have the opportunity of at least knowing about it, and therefore the opportunity to make a different choice should you want to. So this is it. It's called Gray B Gone by Trionics. I have seen this on eBay, I think eBay, maybe on other stores online. I was getting this at Cosmoprof, but in order to shop at Cosmoprof, you either have to have your own cosmetology license or you need to be able to borrow someone's Cosmoprof card who has a membership there, and they can only get that if they have a cosmetology license. This is the bigger bottle. Some of the Cosmoprof locations that I've been in have at least one other size besides this one, a smaller one, and other locations only have this size. This is about $20, and the benefit of going to a Cosmoprof is that you're not paying shipping on top of this because, as you know, liquid is weighty. So when I have seen this online, it's not only $20, but usually about another 10-ish for shipping. So if you can get it locally at a Cosmoprof near you, you would save some money. That being said, even if you did have to pay the shipping, I felt that this was still more cost effective when mixing this with my own brand of choice dye. I'm not talking box dye from the stores. I don't know if I would use this with a box dye, and box dyes are the harshest dyes that there are. So it wouldn't really be my choice. You're better off mixing your own dyes that you get from either Cosmoprof, or even if you get them from Sally's or another beauty supply store where you can buy different dyes, such as Miss Clairol. Miss Clairol isn't necessarily like the grandest version of what's available in terms of toxicity and chemical harshness and all of that, but it is still a lot better than box dye. I still think I wasn't really getting burning sensations when I was using Miss Clairol mixed with this. If I used box dye, which I did do occasionally, usually if someone gave me one, then yes, I would get stinging on my scalp. Joico brand dyes are more gentle, and they're a tube creamy kind of dye, so you have to mix those in a brush and like a dish and apply it that way. It doesn't really work well with the applicator, like the liquid type applicator. Whereas Miss Clairol mixed with this, you can put on with that dye bottle applicator. So now the thing about this is that it says here that you put this on your hair, and then you wrap it up and you put like a bag on it, a bag or like a shower cap that's plastic. And then in a salon setting, you would be sitting under the dryer, under one of those hair dryer things that they have at a salon. When the dye specialist told me about this, that was my first question, because I read it right there in front of her, and I said, well, what do I do about this? I don't have one of those dryers at my house. She said, you don't really need one. Just put a bag on your head. Just put your hair up, put the bag on your hair. You release so much heat from your scalp, which is completely true. You actually emit, I think it's like 40 or 50%. I learned this in diving. I became scuba dive certified at one point, and I actually learned this. I think it's 50%, but it's been a few years since I did that. So my memory is a little shaky on that, but yes, you lose most of the heat from your body through your scalp. And so if you're trapping it with a plastic bag, in most heating situations within your environment, you will generate enough warmth for this to process. Now, when I started doing this when I was living in Southern California, even in the wintertime there, it was still warm enough to where I did not need to make any adjustments to that. Since I've been on the East Coast, yes, it does get quite a bit cooler in the winter, and even with the heat on inside the house, it does not process properly in the wintertime without additional help. So what I would do to make this work then is I would still put my hair up and put the bag on it, and then I would just take a blow dryer and kind of just keep heating it for the processing time. Another thing that worked was I did this for a friend, and she didn't happen to have a blow dryer at her home, but what she did have was a wood burning stove. And so I just had her sit near the wood burning stove, and I had her, she was sitting with one side facing it for a while, and then I had her switch sides so that the other side and then the back got heated fairly evenly, and that worked out. One of the benefits of this is the time it takes. The minimum time is 15 minutes, maximum time is 20. I only ever had to leave this on for additional time when I was questioning the processing time because of it being cold in the winter. Sometimes then I would need to leave it on a little bit longer, but most of the time this really worked well for me within 15 minutes. So that alone right there, you're bathing in these chemicals for a lot less time. And at least for me, this did not sting my scalp when it was on, whereas a lot of other dye products did sting my scalp. Okay, now that said, obviously I stopped dyeing my hair. I still have some of this left because I came to my choice before I finished this bottle. At some point I'm probably just going to throw this away. So anyway, yes, it says on here, advanced replacement for regular peroxide. So basically you can switch this. What this says anyway is that you can switch this for any other developer that you would be buying to go with your dye if you're buying them separately, such as at a beauty supply store. This obviously, I don't know if I would switch this out for anything in a box dye. And I just don't know about what they put in there. A lot of people don't even know what they put in there. And I've consistently heard those are the most harsh chemical dye configurations that you can get and put on yourself. So from that standpoint alone, my recommendation would perhaps be to consider making a different choice away from box dye. So this, it says that there's ingredients derived from sea kelp in here. Well, that's nice. There's probably some stuff in here that's not great. It develops 50 to 80% faster. Yes, I agree with that completely. And it, at least for me, didn't sting. When I put box dye on my hair, it would start stinging probably within 5 minutes. So even if I could get away with a 15 to 20 minute processing time, which in general it's much longer than that, I still was being stung, and I was having sometimes trouble breathing just from the off-gassing from the intense ammonia that was in it. It was not like I was gasping, but I wasn't breathing as easily. I never had those types of reactions from this. It's more vibrant, and it's healthier for your hair, truer, longer lasting color. I think that's probably true. I don't know. So yeah, and this is specially formulated to cover gray hair because many of you may know that if you're trying to cover gray hair, a lot of times you have to put in an extra additive to make that even work, or you have to buy a formulation that is specially made for gray hair for it to work. So this eliminates a lot of that. So yeah, then when you're done, you just rinse it out and go about your day as normal. So if you are still dyeing your hair and you're covering gray, I recommend switching to this along with the color product of your choice. That's not going to necessarily be a box dye, people. And if you switch out whatever the little fluid is that you mix to the coloring part in a box dye, do it at your own risk, at your own experimentation. I have no idea if that works. This, pertaining to the instructions here and what they say here, it works with dyes that you would be buying separate of the developer in a beauty supply store type of situation. So if that's what you want to do, switch to this. I believe you'll be happier with the results than what you've been getting. At least that was my experience, and that's all that I really can attest to. But I did mention in a couple other videos that I made that I would tell you guys about this in case you wanted to know, and I finally remembered to do that today. So if you're still dyeing, happy dyeing. If you've decided to ditch the dye bottle, or are thinking seriously of doing so, consider subscribing here, because that's what I did 6 months ago, and I'm documenting that journey here and sharing my triumphs and tribulations along the way. If that sounds of interest to you, I look forward to seeing you back here. If you want to continue dyeing your hair, you probably won't have any more interest for any of my other videos, but thank you for stopping by for this one, and enjoy dyeing your hair. All the best within that for you.